Molly McGhee, welcome to the Rocky Mountain Writer Podcast.
Thank you. Wow, it's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. We have so much to talk about. I feel like I could probably go for a couple hours with you just based on what I've seen and
Oh my
all the things you've done. My gosh, you've really come at the industry from so many different ways and sides. But yeah, you really have, haven't you?
I
Editor,
guess so.
writer.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, sometimes people tell me what I've done and I go, I did that. That was me. It doesn't feel like it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
And on top of everything else, you've got your first, I believe, debut novel coming
It
out
is. Yeah.
very shortly,
In
October.
October.
Okay.
October 17th.
And it's got a very cool title, Jonathan Abernathy, You Are Kind.
Oh, thanks
And
for calling it
you
cool.
love that.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. And we will talk about that. We're going to get to that because I think folks are going to perk up when they hear the concept for this one, which is bizarre and wonderful and enticing all at the same time. But you're also a masterclass teacher at our upcoming Colorado Gold conference in September. So let's kind of we're going to sneak up on your conference content by asking you just to kind of walk us through a little bit of your background,
Okay.
just how you think about it and all the things you've done.
Wow. Gosh, I worked in publishing for a long time while I was writing novels. And like a lot of young writers, I really thought it's going to take me some time to finish something. So I might as well see what the industry is like while I'm trying to do that. And I learned a lot over the period of 10 years. I worked at places like McSweeney's, FSG, and most recently I worked at a place called Tor as a fantasy and sci-fi editor. I left Tor and now I teach at Columbia, where I also was lucky enough to get my MFA. I studied with folks like Alex Kleeman and Ben Marcus, Sam Lipsyte, and Gary Steingart, as well as one of my favorites, Riv Kagalchin, who is one of the strangest and best writers I think I've read in a while. Yeah, and then I wrote a book. Oh my gosh, I wrote a book. How did that happen? And then during the pandemic, oh my gosh, I sold that book. So here we are. Now I'm trying to do the publicity thing, and I'm very awkward about it.
Pretty soon you'll be giving classes in publicity and marketing too. Who
Oh
knows?
my gosh.
Yeah. All right. So I've got to stop right there and just ask about Gary Steingart because I'm not a completist, but I've read a bunch of his stuff and I've connected with him on Twitter a little bit, and what a interesting guy. Wow.
Gary's great. He really has one of the sharpest senses of humor of anyone in the game. Just sort of, something that I think about a lot is how horror and humor are all about timing. And I was very, very lucky that I got to work as a horror editor and that I got to study under Gary, who is one of the premier humor writers of, I think, 21st century. So
yeah,
very cool guy.
Wow. And he just seems so approachable and kind of
So
totally
nice.
Yeah.
And what I will say is sometimes I couldn't keep up.
Yeah, pretty fast. Yeah, that's great. Wow. And Rivka, I've heard a lot about, but I've not read her stuff.
Everyone knows Your Mother is a Witch is her most recent novel, which is all about sort of the way rumors outgrow their original communities and can have really intense implications on people's lives. It's just really, really funny, excellently done. It's about the mother of, I think, Johann Kepler, who's accused of witchcraft. Very, very fun novel.
Wow. What was it like to walk into Columbia with all that prestige and Ivy Leagueness and start teaching?
I'm gonna be totally honest. Mark, I feel still like I'm just like a little farm girl, and I roll up and I'm in shock. I'm in awe each time that I get to do something so cool. 10 years ago when I was 18, I was leaving Tennessee for the very first time to go to my undergrad. And it was the first time that I got on an airplane, and it was the first time that I'd left like Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama. And I have been on a very strange journey since then. I'm still sort of in awe. It's very hard to wrap my mind around how I got here.
Was writing always part of the plan?
I was really lucky. I had a creative writing teacher when I was in high school who I wasn't really looking forward to going to college. Neither of my parents went to college, and I was happy doing what I was doing. But I had a creative writing teacher who sent an essay of mine into my undergraduate admissions without telling me. And he sort of like convinced me to take the ACT and paid for me to take the ACT. And I thought, I would just humor him. But it turns out I just love reading and writing, and being able to sort of get into an environment where I was allowed to do that like expansively was just a blessing, just an incredible blessing. And I thank him every day. James Dittis, Sumner County. Thank you.
What was the essay about?
I don't even remember. I have no idea. That's the thing. It was so long ago. I wrote it for him as a prompt, and he told me he sent it like 3 or 4 weeks later when I got the admissions letter.
Wow. And where was the undergrad?
It was at a tiny little college in Vermont called Champlain College. Very
Sounds
little.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It was nice. It was about 2,000 people. And they had a really big emphasis on sort of like professional business stuff. So I studied business writing.
Yeah. Was that useful at all today?
Yes, I think so. I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I had some amazing teachers. I've just been really lucky. I've had some really, really amazing teachers throughout my life. I've loved every part of my education journey except for the student loans.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I want to ask about one other, I don't know what to call it, publication, institution you mentioned along the way, McSweeney's.
Oh, yeah.
For those who don't know, and I actually just submitted something for the first time a couple of weeks ago. It got sent back fairly quickly with a no, but that's okay. It'd be a cool place to get a little something published. But can you describe what that is? It's a fascinating world.
Oh, it's so cool. It's one of my favorite literary mags and organizations working today still. And the fact that I've worked there and I still think that's pretty impressive. That's how you know you're doing something right. It is an organization started by Dave Edgars. I want to say 25. I think they're about to celebrate their 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
About 25 years ago now. And it originally started out as a place for the weirdos, a place for all of the writing that couldn't find a place in sort of the bigger institutions. And that project has been really, really inspiring to me. And I found some amazing writers through, like, I'm thinking Leslie Ninka Arima, who wrote When a Man Can Fall from the Sky, just amazing short story collection. And one of my favorite writers of all time, Brian Evanson. I think one of the only times I've been truly starstruck was when I met him. And I made a fool of myself, of course, but that's how it is.
Yeah. Was it, sometimes they say you don't want to meet your heroes, but.
No, he's wonderful. I just got so shy. I was just like, hello, Brian. And he was like, why are you talking this way?
Yeah. Wow. Well, let's take a minute and give us the pitch on reading his stuff.
Oh, I mean, I think he's just fantastic. He is writing very strange fiction that is hard to label. And his publisher is Coffee House Press, if you're familiar with this. So a little indie publisher. And one of the reasons I think he isn't very mainstream is because he's just really what I think people would call a writer's writer. He's really, really pushing the idea of what it means to write and what it means to examine sort of the human experience. Whenever I want to feel disconcerted, out of my body, a little terrified, I go to his work.
Yeah. Is there one title that comes to mind of a short story or something?
My favorite novel of his is The Open Curtain, but
Okay.
he is more well known for his short stories. And I believe he has a collection of them through Coffee House that all sort of have an interlocking cover design. I just finished reading The Glassy Burning Floor of Hell, which was really good. I love the
That's
first
good.
story that opens up that collection.
Wow. Well, McSweeney's also just a place to go for inspiration. If you're thinking you're a little stuck, I mean, just to see all the different ideas that are in there, I would say most of it leans towards humor or something a little lighter. I'm not an expert on
Their
it by any means.
website, definitely. They have
Yeah,
Internet Tendency, which is very humorous.
yeah,
I didn't work on the website. I worked on the literary magazine side. But I would definitely say that sort of humor is very important
yeah,
to
yeah,
their founding mission.
yeah. Wow. And then Tor, I mean, and you worked on a really a series that just rocketed right up there, so to
Oh,
speak.
yeah. I was one of the editors who helped bring the book talk sensation to publishing. So I found a novel that was wonderful, called The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake, and I helped create the precedences, like sort of the logistics of how you take a self-published internet sensation and then you sort of help bring it into there's so much stuff on the back end to publish a book. And so I just was so lucky to work with Olivia, and she's just such a spectacular mind. And I think I got to work on the first two books in that series, and she has the final book coming out now with a new editor because I left, and her editor Lindsay is great at what she does. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the final of the series.
Wow. So when you say you helped shepherd or bring this book into the book talk, you're talking hashtag BOOKTOK book talk world TikTok. So when was this, and was book talk wasn't a thing when you
Book talk
started
was
off?
definitely a thing, but I
Okay.
think publishing is very slow to change. And so there are a lot of workflows and things like that need to be sorted out in order to do new things. And so taking a book that had already been in the world and converting it from a self-published title that had, its own Amazon page, things like that, editing it so that it could reach a larger consumer market, and then doing so that the original fans wouldn't be pissed off and could join us it was a really interesting challenge, and I just loved doing that. And it's fun because, I'm sure the listeners know it is really hard to go from self-published to trad publishing. And I think there are just some really fantastic writers out there right now who are self-publishing because they just don't know how to get into the industry. And so to be able to find Olivia and support her journey and help her become, go from a self-published author to a New York Times bestseller. It was one of the best things I've done so far. I think it just like made me so happy to be able to help her on her own journey there.
That is awesome. Wow. So I did the math a little while ago, and I was an English major. You said 10 years ago you were 18, and I think that means you're 28 now. I'm not positive.
I am.
But you talk like you've got 25 years of experience in.
I'm just obsessed. I just am
Yeah.
obsessed with books. I just am an obsessive. Once I got to college, I wasn't a very ambitious teenager, and I really had no idea what the world held. I was very small town, rural, grew up on a farm, and going to Vermont, which is the opposite of Tennessee, really made me realize not only how big the world is, but how much there is to do in it. So, what my dad says is that I had a fire lit under my ass.
That's great. Wow. Well, if the people listening to this are not already A, signing up for the conference, B, signing up for the critique tables that you're running, and deciding on what they're going to do over the Colorado Gold weekend, one of the options being coming to your master class.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to fill that room, and I hope it's, slowly filling up with this conversation, because I know I would like to be there. And the title of it is, and I'm guessing there's a missing word online. It says How Artists Game System. I assume it's How Artists Game the System. Yeah. So people can mostly, I guess, infer that there's a missing article there.
Oh, we gotta fix that, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How artists, it's a 4-hour, I think it is 4-hour masterclass.
Oh my gosh. Well, last year when I was at Colorado Gold, they asked me to teach this class that sort of did an overview of publishing, how to navigate it, what it looks like to be an artist and have personal goals and, like artistic integrity, and still sort of navigate the really grueling business elements that shape our lives. And I was like, are you sure that I'm the right person to teach this? And they were like, yes. So I taught the class, and it was a huge hit. And I think it was like the most attended class of the conference last year, and they asked me to come back and teach it again. It is basically about, it's a class where I basically teach writers the language of the systems that publishing and agencies work on, and it is beginner friendly. So I do it from the bottom to the top and really sort of explain like what does it mean when you're getting rejected over and over again? What does it mean like to have a query letter? Who are the people behind the screens deciding, and why is it so invisible and so impossible to sort of understand, especially if you don't live in New York, where it's just all obfuscated. So I sort of do a breakdown of what that looks like, and then we go through and figure out ways where we as artists can engage with the realities around us without sacrificing our artistic intent, because art really is all about the soul, right? And so it's just can be really demoralizing to try to figure out how to even get your foot in the door without compromising. And I just think that, I just love books so much, and I love literary books and genre books especially, and weird books and books that just are going to be whatever strange being they're going to be. And there's some tricks, I think, to being able to get in there, get someone's attention without having to sort of sacrifice your unique voice.
Wow, that's a great description. All right, we don't want to give away. Well, if you're up for it, let's give away one example as a free trick we can give away on this podcast, just as a one sort of just change of the mindset kind of thing about how to approach this. Because to me, you are right. The New York publishing speaks in code almost. It's like you if you're not in the club, and know exactly how this works, you are identified as a newcomer / outsider from the get-go.
Right. It's just tough. And, I see why it's like that, because it is a business that is full of other enthusiasts, right? And then at the very top, we have the men with the checkbooks, and they really, let's just say the code helps get the weird stuff in. It helps to prevent the checkbooks from ruling everything. But from the outside, it just looks so daunting. Something I love to tell my students is that let's talk about rejection a little bit, because all authors have to go through rejection. The first book I wrote, we took it out on the day, my agent and I took it out on the day of the insurrection. And it just languished in those inboxes and did not sell. And eventually, when those editors got back to us, the number one thing they said was, this was incredibly ambitious and we loved it, but the timing was not right and we're going to have to pass. And I had to write a whole nother book. I think I got about I want to say 60 or 70 editorial rejections before I found the right editor for me. It is just a process. Now, something that can help my students when I'm talking to them about sort of the resiliency involved is that it actually really has nothing to do most of the time with your work, and rather completely about all these invisible factors that you can't see. What is the publisher's to be read pile looking like? Is the editor that you're submitting to, are they a newer editor? Are they an older editor? What type of books are on their slate for the year? How many books does the imprint have coming out? Frankly, did the guy who signs off on fiscal advances have a cup of coffee that morning and is in a good mood? It's just all so nebulous. And of course, we as writers take it so personally.
Right.
So we're going to be really dissecting sort of what that might look like, and what are some of the challenges that writers might be facing, and why their agents might not be able to communicate some of those challenges explicitly, but that not all hope is lost.
Sounds like people leave that class with a much better mindset. And the more you understand about kind of the world you're trying to enter, the better you understand why the door doesn't open as quickly as you think it should.
I think it allows you to, I think just like everybody else, we all, I struggle with self-confidence and feeling like I'm on the right path. And I know that writers are anxious people and that many of us have the same worries. Maybe it's just because I got really lucky and education sort of saved my life, but I really think that knowledge is power. And so knowing more about the systems that we are trying to get into, especially when we're outsiders, is invaluable. Honestly, mostly in just allowing you to keep faith in the process, allowing you to keep going forward. Because really that's the hard part, is just deciding to keep doing it over and over after endless rejections, to keep going.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what happened to that first novel?
Oh, well, that's actually really sad, Mark. My mom passed away right as I finished it. Yeah. And I just haven't been able, it just so much of her was in it and so much of my life
Oh,
was in it. And I just had to put it in a drawer. My agent really wants me to give it to her. She's like, let's go again, but I'm just not emotionally ready yet. Maybe one day, but
yeah,
right now I just can't.
yeah. Well, a sad segue, but a
Sad
segue
segue.
nonetheless.
Sad
Actually,
segue.
before we get to Jonathan Abernathy, what is you got the master class, and you also have a workshop called Surviving as an Artist. I assume that's a I think it's a 1 hour, or it's a
It is
shorter. Is that got some similar themes to it?
very similar themes, a lot about how, we talk a lot about writing practices, but what we don't talk about is how embarrassing writing is and how psychologically taxing it is. So in this class, I will be talking about practices, rituals, ways to sort of manage your inner critic, ways basically to sort of like help survive that person in your head that is telling you that you are wasting your life, especially when you're looking at a blank page.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
very similar, but from the other side of it.
yeah. Confidence is such a big factor in this business.
It really is.
Yeah. All right. So I would love to hear about Jonathan Abernathy. Jonathan Abernathy, You Are Kind. I'd love to hear you describe this. I went online and looked at the basic description, and I mean, I just instantly thought, this is just going to be it. I got echoes of all sorts of different weird movies and stuff like that. And can you give us the
Yeah,
overview?
I do love the weird. Well, Jonathan and I, we have some things in common. And the number one thing we have in common is we have a lot of debt. After I after I didn't sell that first novel, I was suddenly looking down the double barrel shotgun, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to have to pay this off? And I wrote Jonathan in a fury. It is about a young man who is really behind on his student loan payments, and he is offered loan forgiveness, but with a catch. He has to join the archival offices to participate in a forgiveness program. What he doesn't know is that once he agrees to be part of this program, he is actually going to be sent into the dreams of white collar workers, where he is going to have to remove the elements of their life and their dreams, their nightmares, that their preoccupations, if you will, that keep them from being their most efficient, employable selves. And because it is a novel, obviously everything goes wrong. And Mr. Abernathy has bit off a little bit more than he can chew.
Wow. How old is Jonathan, and where is this set?
It is set. I have a specific place that I was thinking about, but I wasn't allowed. In edits, my editors were like, let's keep it very all-American so that everyone can relate to it. So it is set in the outer city of a medium-sized-ish metropolitan area, sort of in the buffer zone between the suburbs and the city.
Yeah.
Jonathan is 25. He's a college dropout, and he just cannot seem to get it together. He thinks this is going to be his big break and sort of change his life.
What with his college training and all that, what did he want to do? Where was he headed?
He really was just in it for education's sake. Are we seeing some overtones of ooh, ooh. But in the end, he went back to his family and sort of did not get to finish his degree.
Ah, and so is he? He's a, in terms of career focus, he's adrift. He's
adrift. He what's the word that I want to use? He's one of he went to a state school, and this isn't in the novel, so I don't know if I should. I'm still figuring out, what I want to, what my balance is as an author. You know what I mean? What I want the book to speak for itself, and what. But when I was conceiving of his character, I get all my ideas in dreams. I have really, really severe insomnia, and I only sleep for about 4 hours at a time. And then one of the ways that I started combating that insomnia was by writing in between my sleep sessions. So this novel came to me originally as a stress dream that I was having over and over and over and over again. And the trick to write it was just figuring out how I wanted to translate that feeling so other people could experience it, and other people could see this story that I was seeing. So the character of Jonathan, for me, came to me like fully formed, and I feel quite rude looking into his life and writing about it. Poor guy. He wasn't asking for it.
Did he, when he came fully formed, he came with the name?
Yeah, the name too. Isn't that crazy? It's really weird. I have these dreams where, like, the dreams that I'm having, when I have them, it's like I'm an observer, and they're almost like lucid, but they're not quite lucid. Like I can't control them, but I am aware I'm not. I think it's probably because I read so many books. I have no idea, but it's just always been like that. And I just had a pediatrician who, when I first started suffering from insomnia, was like, you should just write down the weird nightmares you're having and see what happens.
Wow.
I know.
Well, I'm going to try to ask another question about the story. And if it goes too far into the guts and meat of the plot and the issues, you can say no comment if you'd like to.
Okay.
But I'm going to guess that the "you are kind" part of the title has to do with the fact that I'm inferring that he gets to a point where he sees the damage that could be done by, it's sort of almost like, am I changing the future kind of a question, or changing changing time.
I'm really influenced. I sound like such a college lit bro sometimes. I'm really, really influenced by systems novels. So I'm a sucker for them. I love them.
Give us some examples. Give us some examples of what you mean by that.
So let's think. They're so, the systems novel, what I will say before I give some examples, is the really big systems novels are usually very, very masculine. So like I'm thinking like DeLillo, who's famous for his systems novels, right? Foster Wallace, who like really, really looked at systems novels through a language perspective. Gosh, now that you're asking, I'm kind of
right.
Joseph Heller, you know what I mean? Catch 22. It's interesting. What they're about is how sometimes it's a very American literary tradition.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of has a deep, what's the word I want? It deeply goes back to Kafka, right? Like the horror of when systems get so large, we're no longer individuals within them, we're mere cogs in the machine. So Pynchon is a great example of a writer who really explores the absurdity of systems and what that looks like. Gosh, I'm just naming all the big white males. But I think
Philip Roth with his, at least his education related, university related stories.
Totally. And there's just something so suffocating about it that you just get really swept up in it, and then you find yourself participating in it. And what does that look like from an emotional perspective? Like, what does it look like from an individual perspective to be stuck within this thing that you thought would solve everything, and then find out that not only can you not leave, but that you are complicit in the suffering of others. And so, yes, Jonathan has to make a choice on whether he's going to choose himself or choose kindness. And I won't say which one he does.
Yeah.
So I guess the title
Kind of a spoiler.
it's kind of a spoiler.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds absolutely fantastic, Molly. Really sounds great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I have to ask, it's sort of a, you never know whether this question, might just fall flat. Did you see the TV series Severance?
I didn't. I don't watch a lot of
Yeah.
TV. I grew up in the country, and my parents are wonderful eccentrics, and I really just never developed the TV habit that a lot of my friends have, and I'm kind of sad about it. I'm like, I want to watch these shows, but I just, for whatever reason, TV is so intense for me. I can't handle it.
Yeah, that one's pretty intense, and it's really an interesting concept that just sort of echoed for me off of your concept.
Is that the HBO show?
I think it was Apple TV, just
Apple TV.
Apple. Yeah, I just take a look on YouTube or something for a few minutes. They probably have a trailer or something and get a flavor for it. But really, I felt some very Severance vibes, but totally different too.
You're not the first person who said that to me. The very first person who said that to me, I thought they were talking about Severance, the novel by Ling Ma, which I love, and I got to work on as an intern when I was at FSG.
Wow.
So that's one that I really recommend. And I did mistake it for, I was like, novel? I love that novel. Yes, I was thinking about that. And then they were like, no, Molly, it's a TV show. And I was like,
that's great. Wow. Well, this has just been a terrific conversation. I was right. I know we could go for 2 hours, but I have to cut it off just in terms of everything. We all have lives, right?
Yes.
So thank you so much for your time. But one thing we like to do as we wrap up, you've already mentioned a bunch of titles, but we're going to give you another shot at promoting a book you love or a writer you think more people should be reading.
I would really, I love Changing All Stars by Nana Kwame Adejei-Brenyah, which just came out, I think, last month. Have you heard of this book yet?
I think I've seen that title. It's a memorable title.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It is excellent. Really, really looking at sort of like the systems of American cruelty and how we become not only complicit in them, but entertained by them at a certain point.
Wow.
And Brenyah is just really, he's just an excellent crafter of fiction. He really tells a story, which I personally love. And it's a gut punch. It hurts when you're reading it, but in a good way.
Well, thank you, Molly. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We'll look forward to seeing you at Colorado Gold in September.
I'm excited. I'll see you then.